I am the villainess in this high society love story. After the heroine appeared, my childhood sweetheart and fiancé no longer had eyes for me. No matter how hard I tried to hold on, he insisted on breaking off our engagement. Humiliated and made a laughingstock, I impulsively married Julian, the second male lead who grew up with the heroine. After marriage, whenever the male and female leads upset me, I would vent my frustrations on Julian. No matter how harsh my attitude was, he remained gentle and considerate. Even when I slapped him, his greatest concern was, have you calmed down, does your hand hurt? Later, when my ex-fiancé's marriage with the female lead hit rock bottom, he wanted to reconcile with me. Julian didn't want to put me in a difficult position, so he took the initiative to hand me the divorce papers he asked back, so I should leave. I frowned as I took them. Are you sure about this? Yes. But that very night, someone was sobbing uncontrollably in the living room, clutching a pillow. One coming home from work, the living room lights were blindingly bright. Julian sat on the sofa, watching the news broadcast on TV. Light and shadow fell on his shoulders, indescribably lonely and desolate. Hearing the noise, he glanced back at me, then quickly averted his gaze. I wanted to greet him as usual, but remembering we were still in a Cold War, the words reached my lips only to be swallowed back down. I hurried upstairs to take a quick shower, washing away the exhaustion of the day. While blow-drying my hair, I noticed the empty hair oil had been replaced with a new bottle. After freshening up, I went downstairs to find the living room filled with the aroma of home-cooked food. Having worked overtime tonight, I hadn't had time to eat. I was already starving, my stomach practically touching my backbone. My stomach growled embarrassingly loud. Julian set the table and asked want to join me for a bite. These were the first words he'd spoken to me in 3 days. Recognizing his peace offering, I immediately seized the opportunity. Yes. We ate facing each other. My loose hair kept getting in the way, and noticing this, Julian reached into the pocket of his navy blue robe, produced a black hair tie, and came over to deftly tie up my hair. He asked, always so thoughtful, do you always carry hair ties with you? Yes, I picked up my chopsticks and served him some food. Thank you. Julian's distant tone made my heart ache. You never used to talk to me like this. After tidying up, we went upstairs to rest. After all the lights went out, the bedroom fell into complete silence. I mustered my courage, turned over, and hugged Julian from behind. Tomorrow's the weekend, no need to wake up early. This was our secret code between Julian and me. But this time, instead of the passionate response I expected, there was only his calm counter-question. Did you see Liam today? Hearing my ex-fiancé's name from Julian's lips, I froze momentarily, not quite understanding his meaning. No, I didn't. Was it Chloe who upset you again? Chloe, Liam's wife. One of the people I hate the most. The little courage I had mustered up completely vanished at his question. I let go of his hand, my tone sharp. Julian, what do you mean by that? He turned around slowly. Moonlight streamed through the window, illuminating the grievance on Julian's face. If they hadn't upset you, why would you take the initiative to touch me? Grace, what exactly do you take me for? In the past, I would have answered without hesitation, a tool. A tool to vent my anger, but now meeting his gaze, I simply couldn't say it. When I first agreed to marry Julian, it had nothing to do with genuine feelings. Apart from our parents' matchmaking, it was mostly driven by my vengeful selfishness. 6 months ago, I was in a car accident. During my coma, I dreamed that my world was actually a novel about high society romance. Liam, my childhood sweetheart whom I adored for years, was the male lead, while Chloe, the female lead, was his true destined love. I was that jealous, self-destructive villainess who ultimately lost everything and met a tragic end. I thought it was just a nightmare, but when I woke up in the hospital room, the dream had become reality. My mother told me that my fiancé Liam had fallen madly in love with an ordinary girl named Chloe, the female lead, during my coma, and had unilaterally called off our engagement. And Chloe, desperate to marry into Liam's family, knelt outside my hospital room despite my frail condition, begging me to let her have Liam. She skillfully played the victim with her silver tongue, crying so dramatically that the entire hospital came to watch the spectacle. People who didn't know the truth gathered to accuse me, bullying me online. Liam, in his determination to marry Chloe, disregarded our years of affection and fanned the flames behind the scenes, ultimately forcing my parents to compromise so they could get married. Meanwhile, my reputation was ruined. During that time, I didn't dare to leave the house or go online. Julian appeared at this very moment, brought together by family elders and carefully selected by my parents. Whether it was looks, education, or physique, Julian was in no way inferior to Liam. Most importantly, he was the unattainable dream lover of the female lead, Chloe. Upon hearing our wedding news, Chloe's face indeed turned ashen. That moment, I found my outlet for venting. After marriage, I would constantly drag Julian to parade in front of Chloe. Whenever Chloe upset me, I would take out all my anger on Julian, humiliating and tormenting him mercilessly. I would straddle him and bite him hard, leaving row after row of teeth marks. I would deliberately torment him in the middle of the night, making him run several blocks to buy me cheesecake. I knew full well he had an important public lecture the next day, yet I still kept him up until dawn. Julian seemed completely unaware of how terribly I treated him. The bite marks left scars that weren't pretty, yet he called them love's imprints. I was sensitive, suspicious, and quick-tempered, yet he blamed himself for being too busy with work and neglecting to spend time with me. I slapped him, yet he came over to ask with concern, does your hand hurt? Completely forgetting about the raised red handprint on his own face. No matter how sharp my edges were, Julian always patiently wrapped them in his gentleness bit by bit. Gradually, I realized my own faults and began to rein in my temper, learning to let go of the past and build our own little home. But things didn't go as planned. Life is like a circle. No matter how hard I tried to avoid it, I still ended up running into Chloe and Liam. That thorn in my heart kept tormenting me. The slightest provocation would make me lose all reason and become utterly unreasonable. This Cold War started when I saw Chloe and Julian embracing each other. I refused to listen to any explanation and hurled the harshest words at him. Julian was so upset by me that he cried. He didn't indulge or comfort me as he usually would. His gaze was filled with disappointment and sorrow. In your heart, am I really such a fickle, shameless person? Before leaving, he explained to me once more. I didn't hug her. The next day, Julian sent me the surveillance footage from the scene. The recording showed it clearly. Chloe had deliberately leaned into his arms while he was actively trying to push her away. I had misunderstood him, so if it wasn't because of Liam and Chloe, then what was it? Surely not because you cared about me, Julian asked, laughing at his own words. He had grown accustomed to my silence and stopped pressing further, picking up his pillow as he rose. Where are you going? You said you didn't want to see me anymore. I'll sleep in the guest room. In the heat of arguments, we always blurt out the most cutting words without thinking, trying to gain the upper hand. That's just the kind of person I am. Once emotions take over, I lose all restraint. He always picks on those closest to him. Seeing Julian's aggrieved expression, I couldn't bring myself to say anything harsh. I didn't mean I didn't want to see you. That was just angry talk. I reached out and hugged him. I misunderstood you. Please don't be angry anymore, okay? Julian didn't speak, but he didn't push me away either. He lay back in his original position, turning his back to me. Though physically close, he felt separated by an insurmountable chasm. I stared at his retreating figure, feeling my eyes grow hot. Why was I crying? I tugged at the blanket covering the corners of my eyes to soak up the gathering tears. Somewhere between dreams and wakefulness, I fell into a warm embrace. I habitually reached out to encircle him, and after catching that familiar scent, I nuzzled against him. Then I embraced him fully, hearing a very soft sigh by my ear. Grace, am I really just a tool to you? We went back to my parents' house for dinner over the weekend. Julian had prepared gifts in advance. When I woke up in the morning, he held me and gave me a good morning kiss. He doesn't seem angry with me anymore, but I still feel something off. After getting in the car, Julian didn't say a word to me, except reminding me to fasten my seatbelt. Last night's embrace was probably just my imagination. My heart ached with a sour, uncomfortable feeling. After entering the house and exchanging pleasantries with my parents for a while, Julian rolled up his sleeves and went into the kitchen to help my dad with the cooking. I sat on the sofa idly peeling lychees to eat. My mind was completely preoccupied with whether we had actually made up or not. I didn't even notice the juice spilling all over the floor. Did you and Xiaozhu have a fight? Mom sat down next to me, pointing at the mess I'd made on the floor. I tried to cover it up. No, we're fine. You think your mom stupid? The last few times you came back, you were glowing, practically clinging to Xiaozhu. This time you look no different from someone with their tail between their legs. Since when? Keep pretending. I picked at the lychee peel bit by bit, lost in thought. When we first got married, I kept pushing Julian away, insisting repeatedly that we sleep in separate beds. But he would constantly tease me, finding new ways to charm me, every day gathering my favorite foods, beautiful clothes, and all sorts of fun things. I couldn't hold out. The pillows came back first, then the clothes, and finally I did too. What are you spacing out for? Mom grew anxious, waiting for my response, and started overthinking. Grace, tell me the truth. Are you still thinking about Liam? The mention of Liam tore open wounds that hadn't yet healed. After waking from that endless nightmare, the pain and torment he'd caused me by his fickleness and broken engagement coursed through me once more. Seeing my silence, Mother grew concerned. Grace, you can't keep being so indecisive. It's unfair to Xiaozhu. Mom, could we please not bring up the past? I snapped, irritably crushing another lychee in my restless hands. The kitchen door had been pushed open unnoticed, and Julian stood in the corner. He had heard every word of our conversation. At the end of April, a childhood friend of mine was getting married. When Julian heard I planned to take him along, he was stunned for a long while. A faint melancholy flickered between his brows. I asked in puzzlement, what's wrong? This is the first time you've ever taken the initiative to bring me into your circle. On the wedding day, I prepared a large red envelope. The groom, Kevin, was my childhood best friend. Back when I was being cyberbullied, he was the first to stand up and defend me. Seeing Julian, Kevin's expression became somewhat uneasy. I thought you'd come alone. You and your husband make a lovely couple. I didn't think much of it, thank you. Our close childhood friends had all been seated at the same table. Easy to spot, I pulled Julian forward to greet them, only to come face to face with my ex-fiancé Liam. Liam's presence at the wedding banquet was both unexpected and yet made perfect sense. Our families have been friends for many years. Although our younger generation has had unpleasant conflicts, we must still consider the elders' feelings. He came alone, and Chloe was nowhere in sight. Grace, long time no see. Seeing an old acquaintance again, my emotions were complicated. Liam's gaze burned intensely at the sight of my hand holding Julian's. I recoiled as if electrocuted, instinctively pulling my hand back. Julian's hand fell through empty air. Don't just stand there talking, have a seat first. Grace, this is a childhood friend, gestured toward Julian. Our marriage had begun with impure motives and was rather hastily arranged since Julian didn't belong to our social circle. Many people had never met him before. I had just begun when Julian lowered his head to look at me, as if seeking my opinion. Seeing him being so cautious made my heart clench suddenly. My husband Julian, after I introduced him, Liam took over and said to Julian with a smile, sorry about this, didn't he expect Grace to bring you along? This table is all old friends, and we're a bit short on seats. How about you find another table to squeeze in? The moment the words were spoken, every breath in the room became painfully clear and awkward. Liam's words carried an underlying meaning. I could hear it, and so could Julian. Instinctively, I looped my arm through Julian's fine. Julian agreed, without the slightest hint of temper, his voice eerily calm. I froze. He lowered his head and gently tucked my stray hair behind my ear, saying, "Haven't you been saying for a long time that you miss chatting with your friends today? As a rare opportunity. You sit here, I'll go to the next table." Our childhood friends wore mixed expressions. Liam opened his mouth, but ultimately said nothing. My breathing grew rapid as I tightly gripped his arm. Kevin, having finished greeting relatives and friends, approached with a raised glass. He sensed the awkward atmosphere and immediately pulled away the two groomsmen originally seated here. The seats were now empty. Kevin pressed Julian and me down onto them, one on each side. Grace as husband-wife, so stiff. "Come on, sit down, eat more later. Do this groom a favor and liven things up." The music played as the newlyweds took the stage, exchanging vows and a kiss, pushing the atmosphere to its peak. The wedding banquet officially began. Waiters steadily brought out fresh and exquisite dishes. The bride and groom came to toast, with everyone chatting and laughing, offering their blessings in unison. A waiter presented a dish of fiery red chili chicken. "The taste is excellent, with a spicy aroma filling the air." Everyone at the table couldn't stop praising it. Julian knew I liked spicy food and also picked a few pieces for me. The sister across the table noticed Liam hadn't touched his chopsticks and asked curiously, "Liam, why aren't you eating?" "He has a stomach condition and can't eat spicy food." The muscle memory of 10 years together made me blurt it out. 5. The moment the words left my mouth, I immediately regretted it. The bone in my mouth crunched against my teeth, sending a sharp pain through my gums. "Liam, so you can't handle spicy food?" Liam's eyes lit up with unexpected delight as he replied, "Yeah, I've had stomach issues for years. Spicy food always makes me uncomfortable." After Grace found out, she started making milder dishes for me regularly. She has pampered my stomach so much that now I can't tolerate even a hint of spice. Liam's lips curved into a smile as he subtly straightened his posture. "Grace, so you still remember my dietary restrictions?" I wanted to explain but couldn't find the words. My gaze instinctively turned to Julian. Julian's brow furrowed slightly as he remained silent. Hearing this, he broke the shrimp he'd been peeling into several pieces before placing them in my bowl. I lowered my head to eat the shrimp. Julian had dipped his in a lot of vinegar. With one bite, the sourness spread from my mouth to my heart. "So you can cook," he said, the corner of his mouth twitching slightly as if smiling, but his voice carried a hint of exhaustion. In the 6 months we'd been married, I had never cooked for Julian. He asked me. I lied. Liam poured the wine deliberately, wanting to clink glasses with Julian. "Mr. Julian, have we met before?" Everyone's gaze shifted back and forth between the two of them. Julian set down his chopsticks and said, "Clearly we were in the same department in university. We might have crossed paths on campus." "Is that so?" Liam mused thoughtfully. "I only just found out now that Julian and Liam were actually in the same department. The physics department only has about 80 people in total. How could I not have noticed you?" Liam looked skeptical. Julian replied calmly, "Perhaps I was too ordinary back then to catch Mr. Liam's attention." "I suppose that's possible." The two exchanged words laced with hidden meanings. Liam picked up the white wine in front of him, raising it slightly, just going through the motions. I placed my hand over Julian's, disagreeing with his self-deprecation. "You're anything but ordinary." Julian glanced down at the wine in his glass, smiled faintly, then drained it in one gulp. After several rounds of drinks, Liam's phone began to vibrate. He didn't answer. It rang again, back and forth. It rang over a dozen times. "Someone couldn't stand it anymore. It might be urgent. You should just answer it." Liam answered the call. The commotion on the other end was loud with sobbing. "Why aren't you replying to my messages? Are you seeing another woman?" It was Chloe's voice. My grip faltered, nearly spilling the orange juice in my hand. "Be careful." Julian caught my wrist just in time, his deep voice slightly hoarse. "Just say what you want." Liam was very impatient. After hanging up the phone, his brows furrowed into a deep shape as he grabbed his coat and left. Julian gripped too tightly, the pain bringing tears to my eyes. After he let go, my wrist was left with a red mark. Meeting my slightly moist eyes, Julian suddenly sobered up. "I'm sorry. I didn't mind that just now. It was because my hand was shaking." "Machem, I believe you." After Liam left, the dinner table immediately erupted in chaos. "Did you hear that? It's Chloe again. That woman Chloe. Last time Liam and I went to a bar, we brothers had just opened a bottle of red wine when she barged in furiously, almost mistaking me for the other woman and dragging me out. You know Liam's old lady, right? She has been so angry she has ended up in the hospital several times because of her. But the real drama was when she got fired recently. Chloe got into Liam's family company through connections, taking over the CFO's position from the original finance director. She was incompetent for her position, making one mistake after another at work. In the most recent contract transaction, she even made the rookie mistake of misplacing the decimal point in the amount, causing the company to lose tens of millions. Chloe, as the primary person in charge, was immediately dismissed, and Liam was consequently reassigned to a branch office by his father. Back then, she loved more passionately than anyone, yet that very passion was torn to shreds by the trivialities of married life. People from different worlds who force themselves together will never come to a good end. I listened to their gossip ever since my last argument with Julie, and I hadn't paid attention to Chloe's whereabouts. Would the lives of the main couple also turn into complete chaos? Julian downed another glass of wine. He wasn't usually one to drink heavily. What does Mr. Julian do for a living? He is a university professor. Amidst the clinking of glasses, Julian became the center of conversation. How did you meet Grace while working at the university? I know this one Julian S. advisor was my father's closest classmate and friend. He had a very good impression of Julian. Knowing my father was looking for a marriage prospect for me, he recommended him. Arranged by elders, he came to visit. That day, I was sunbathing in the yard when Julian, dressed in a simple, white shirt, burst into my view. During the university sports meet, she once brought me a bottle of water. A faint curve lifted at the corner of Julian's lips, but soon it turned into a pout. That was our first meeting. I was completely stunned. Julian was drunk. He leaned against me, docile as a pampered cat. I had never seen Julian so unguarded before, and I greedily stole a few more glances at him. I drove us back. Julian sat in the passenger seat without vomiting or making any fuss. He rolled down the car window, the night breeze brushing against his flushed cheeks, his drunkenness evident. I glanced at him from time to time. Julian, are you still sober? Yeah, I felt slightly relieved as we drove home from the parking lot. Julian walked steadily, far from the staggering drunk I had imagined. After entering, Julian sat on the sofa in the dimly lit room where no lights were turned on. He seemed particularly fond of dark environments. I turned on a small nightlight and brought him a cup of honey water to sober him up. After sitting down, I asked Julian, when did I ever bring you water? I had been thinking about it the whole way, but couldn't he recall any related memory? I asked again. Julian took a sip of honey water, his fingers tracing circles along the rim of the cup as he sank into memories. It was during the autumn sports meet jointly held by our two universities in our junior year, the long-distance race event. During the break, you suddenly hugged me from behind and handed me a bottle of Evian water. You were startled when you realized it was me. You mistook my silhouette for Liam's. You were flustered, leaving in a hurry. Holding the water you gave me, I stood rooted to the spot until your figure disappeared from sight. Julian couldn't understand honey water was supposed to be sweet, so why did it taste increasingly bitter the more he drank? His fondness for Grace began with that retreating figure, with the heart-fluttering moment of that embrace from behind. During university, he silently watched over her, and after graduation, he continued to quietly keep her in his thoughts. He knew she had been jilted and was unhappy, but there was nothing he could do about it. When he learned from his mentor that the match being introduced was Grace, he was overjoyed, even wondering if he was dreaming. With hope and nervousness, he formally met Grace, only to be greeted with her first words, I can marry you, but I want to love you. I already have someone I like. It was Liam, he knew had known since their university days. He had underestimated his own tolerance. The panicked look Grace gave Liam, her deliberately withdrawn hand, and the eating habits engraved in her heart. Every single detail was enough to drive him mad with jealousy. He forcibly suppressed his emotions, refusing to let them show. Because once the floodgates of emotion were torn open, there would be no way to mend them. Julian's eyes turned red as he finished reminiscing, tears flooding half his pupils. I don't remember. I know he raised his hand to wipe away the tears. The conversation came to an abrupt halt, so that was actually my first encounter with Julian nearly 5 or 6 years earlier than I'd thought. I didn't know what to say, and silence gradually spread through the air. The living room was so quiet that only the howling night wind outside the window remained. The nightlight had been on for too long, fading from pale yellow to the whitish hue of fish belly, just as her thoughts had shifted from hazy to crystal clear. Julian, do you like me? Yes. Feeling it wasn't enough, he added, I do very much. I couldn't sleep for several nights in a row when I found out you were willing to marry me. This sudden confession made my mind explode like a kaleidoscope of fireworks. Julian had always been restrained, reserved, and gentle, rarely so straightforward in expressing his feelings. He hinted at it a few times before couching his words in jokes. That feeling was like playing hide and seek behind a thin veil. Hazy and elusive, I never took it to heart. Nor did I ever take it seriously. Grace, let us get divorced. What, I didn't agree. I just thought he was drunk and talking nonsense. You've had too much to drink, go rest first. I'm perfectly sober. Not wanting to hear him say these things, I looped my arms around his neck and sealed his lips with a kiss. The lingering taste of honey water on his lips, not sweet at all. Good night. Julian went to the guest room next door. I sat alone in the master bedroom, wide awake, my gaze shifting from the pale ceiling to the city lights outside the window. Finally, it landed on the wedding photo hanging in the room. It was taken when we were still practically strangers. My smile was forced while Julian looked overly nervous. I scanned through them one by one, noticing some details I hadn't paid attention to before. I looked at the scenery while Julian looked at me. I gazed at tiny dust particles, and Julian still watched me. Since our marriage, I've failed to give Julian what he deserved, neither the proper attitude, nor due trust, nor even basic spousal dignity. I treated him as an outlet for my emotions, taking endlessly without giving, putting my own pleasure above his pain. I never once tried to put myself in his shoes to understand his feelings. After Julian sobered up, dark circles hung beneath his eyes. We met downstairs and exchanged silent glances. Last night you were drunk and didn't say anything. I deliberately avoided mentioning the word divorce, wanting to see how Julian would react. He didn't bring it up again. We silently agreed to forget this little episode. I made breakfast. Have some. Julian's eyes dimmed slightly when he saw the milk and sandwich on the table. I'm not hungry. He hastily tied his tie, grabbed his briefcase, and walked out the door. I chased after him, explaining, you know about my history with Liam. He was diagnosed with stomach issues in his teens. That's why I remembered he couldn't eat spicy food. It was completely instinctive. I didn't mean anything by it. He kept his head down while changing shoes, ignoring me. I tugged at the end of his tie, my confidence wavering. Julian, did you hear what I just said? Yes, do you believe me, mm? I stood on tiptoe, trying to kiss his lips. He instinctively turned his head away. You say you believe me with your mouth, but not in your heart. Understanding dawned on me, and I let go of my hands. I watched his retreating figure disappear. Julian started becoming very busy. Apart from working overtime most of the time after returning home, he stayed in his study, keeping company with his books and computer. By the time he finished work, I was already asleep. Our communication became very, very scarce. Waking up in the middle of the night, I instinctively reached to the side of the bed. It was empty. So was my heart. Why had things come to this? Before Julian appeared, hadn't he? I always slept alone. The studio had just finished a major project, so I took a few days off. I went shopping alone at the mall, picking up some new household items along the way. The maternity and baby product section on the third floor was having a promotion. Suddenly feeling a flutter in my heart, I walked in to take a look. Wrap all these up for me. Talk about bad luck running into each other. I ran into Chloe. It had been some time since we last met, and she'd grown noticeably thinner. The memory of my last emotional outburst still left me somewhat shaken. I wanted to avoid her first. After instructing her bodyguards to deliver the purchases to her car, Chloe took the initiative to come greet me. She placed her hand on her belly, a smug smile curling at the corners of her lips. Grace, I'm pregnant, just 2 months along. Oh, Grace, this time I've won. I was utterly baffled. Chloe stroked her stomach, recounting in meticulous detail how much Liam adored her, how his family doted on her, and the child in her womb. Liam's father promised me a riverside villa if this one turns out to be a boy. You'll never have another chance to pester Liam in this lifetime. The only Mrs. Liam will ever be is me. Grace, so what if you're a rich heiress? In the end, you still lost to me. My life is better than yours. My head was buzzing. I couldn't believe these were words coming from someone who was supposed to be the female lead. At the same time, I remembered the question Julian had once asked me. Grace, are you really so concerned about whether Chloe is doing well, or not just because of Liam? That day I had just been upset by Chloe. I vented to Julian, and then curled up in his arms, letting him blow dry my hair. Yes, it's all because of Liam. Julian stared into my eyes, seeing right through me. At first it really was about Liam. He broke off our engagement for Chloe. Our 10-year relationship couldn't withstand a mere month of novelty, and that has always been a knot in my heart. I couldn't believe I'd lost to Chloe, lost so utterly and completely. Later I became a victim of online violence. Public opinion still overwhelmingly favored Chloe, and I began to doubt myself. The thought of not being as good as Chloe took root in my mind, and the result was that I became increasingly obsessed with proving myself superior to her. Julian said this way of thinking was wrong. Grace, what defines living well, and what defines living poorly? Was it Chloe who used Liam as a trophy to flaunt, mocked your failures, and reveled in provoking your anger? Or was it you who used me as bait to spite Chloe, deriving momentary pleasure from it? Back and forth fighting over such a petty victory. Were you truly happy? At the time I didn't understand. I even said carelessly, of course, I'm happy as long as Chloe is unhappy, I'm satisfied. Instead, seeing Julian show concern for Chloe, I angrily kicked him and refused to let him dry my hair anymore. What's the matter? Feeling sorry for your childhood sweetheart? Don't forget who you belong to now. Know what happens to her has nothing to do with me. The one I care about is you. Julian gently explained to me, I want you to be happy, truly happy. When you sink into meaningless comparisons, you become trapped by negative emotions, gradually assimilated until you finally lose your sense of self. Chloe tried her hardest to provoke me, but I remained unfazed. She looked surprised. Grace, how can you be so calm? Failing to witness my outburst, she was visibly disappointed. Seeing you as a mirror, I suddenly understood many things. I left the mall. The dark clouds that had weighed on my heart earlier had completely dissipated. The breeze was gentle, and the sunlight just right. Suddenly, I really wanted to see Julian. Julian wasn't home. He had gone out for a gathering with colleagues. He didn't return until after 10 p.m. I had texted him at 8 and he told me to sleep early and not wait for him. My wide-awake eyes stared blankly as I listened intently to the sound of running water from next door. Julian is back and taking a shower. About 10 minutes later, the sound of running water stopped. The door wasn't completely shut. A faintly discernible figure lingered outside, its shadow cast clearly on the floor by the light. This isn't the first time. I know everything. Late at night, I gently pushed open the door to find Julian sleeping peacefully. I changed into a spaghetti-strap nightgown and tiptoed onto the bed. In the faint light, I gazed at Julian's sleeping face. It had been so long since I'd looked at him this closely. As I lifted the blanket and was halfway into bed, the rustling sounds I made woke Julian. Grace, he sat up abruptly. What are you doing here? My shoulder strap slipped accidentally, and he immediately averted his gaze before reaching over to adjust it for me. Lying there, I tugged at the blanket in his hands and lied without batting, and there's a mouse in my room. I'm sleeping here tonight. How could there be mice in the house? But there are. Julian saw through my lie, but chose not to call me out on it. Don't worry, I won't do anything to you. Julian looked down at my hand, already reaching under the hem of his pajamas. So you're... I spoke with unjustified confidence, just checking if your abs are still there. There are shared marital property. I have a stake in them too. After letting me grope around for a bit, Julian lay down beside me. The blanket carried a scent, and I secretly took a whiff. Growing bolder, I inched my way into Julian's embrace. Embraces are also marital joint property. The moment his warm palm touched my skin, a profound sense of peace flooded my entire being. The embrace I'd missed for a week, the long-lost happiness and contentment made me choke up uncontrollably, tears streaming down my face. Suddenly I understood what was happening to me. I'd fallen for Julian. It happened during one of those days and nights we spent constantly together. Why are you crying? Are you in pain somewhere? Julian wanted to turn on the light, but I didn't let him. Some words can only be spoken more honestly when you can't see each other's faces. Julie and I saw Chloe today and managed to keep my emotions in check for the first time. You were right, I shouldn't compare myself to her. At every turn it's meaningless and only makes me wallow in the past, slowly losing myself. From now on I won't let unnecessary people or things distract me anymore. I'll focus on building a life with you. Julian, can we stop fighting? After a long while he held me tight and replied with a single word, My heart ached until it melted, emotions erupting in an instant. My hand traced the contours of his face, accurately finding his lips. I captured his lips, gently pressing before parting them to deepen the kiss. A body dormant for nearly a month was ignited, lips and teeth entwined in irresistible passion. They say no marital quarrel lasts beyond bedtime, that all can be resolved between the sheets. I never understood before, but after we genuinely reconciled, I realized how true those words were. I'd never picked Julian up from work before. We had just reconciled, and I wanted to give him a surprise. I bought a bouquet of roses and drove to his school to pick him up. But instead of creating a surprise, I ended up in a car accident on the way. I was driving straight when a car suddenly turned right without signaling. I didn't have time to hit the brakes, and the two cars collided. The other driver was a burly middle-aged man. Seeing that I appeared to be a delicate woman, even though he was clearly at fault, he stubbornly blamed everything on me. I was so furious that I rolled up my sleeves and started arguing with him. Just as we were about to come to blows, Liam, who happened to be passing by, stopped the man and called 911. Why are you still so impatient? What if he had hit you when I wasn't there? None of your concern. During the wait for the police to arrive, Liam brought up what happened a few days ago. Why haven't you been answering my calls these past few days? There's no need for us to stay in contact anymore. Julian happened to send me a video call request. The environment was too noisy, so I hung up. Then I found a suitable excuse to vaguely brush it off. Why didn't you answer? Afraid he'd see you with me. Liam had come over at some point without me noticing. While typing I replied, he has a very important routine meeting today. I can't distract him. Liam listened, feeling somewhat unsettled. Being so considerate of others, doesn't he seem like your usual character? I shot him a sidelong glance and emphasized Julian isn't just others. By the time the police and insurance company arrived, reviewed the surveillance footage, handled the claims process, and had the car towed away. I checked the time. An hour and a half had already passed. Julian's meeting was about to end. I held a bouquet of red roses ready to hail a taxi. Are you heading to a university this way? Yes. Let me give you a ride. Don't worry, I mean nothing by it. Liam opened the passenger door, but I walked around to the back instead. Grace, have we become this distant? We're both married now. It's better to be mindful of boundaries. At the south gate of a university, I unbuckled my seatbelt. As I opened the car door to leave, Liam, who had remained silent throughout the ride, finally spoke. Grace, are you in love with him? Yes. I answered without hesitation. I got out of the car, as usual. But Liam chased after me and grabbed my arm. I don't believe it. You still remember, I can't eat spicy food, that I have a weak stomach. You still care about me. How could you possibly be in love with Julian? Grace, you're just angry with me, aren't you? How could half a year possibly outweigh the 10 years between us? I almost laughed. I skillfully twisted free from his grasp. Liam, have you forgotten? It only took you 1 month to throw away our 10 years. Congratulations on becoming a father. Liam suddenly lost all his strength. At this point, he had no choice but to admit, Grace, I regret it. That's your problem. It has nothing to do with me. My family pass card was left in the car. The security guard wouldn't let me in. I could only wait outside holding the flowers. Fortunately, Julian got off work early and came out to meet me soon. These flowers are, of course, they're for you. Do you like them? Julian seemed momentarily stunned. He cradled the flowers in his arms, his voice slightly choked with emotion. I love them. Then I'll send them to you often from now on. After making this promise, I playfully scratched his chin. I've never been one to keep things bottled up, so I ended up telling him about the car accident. Julian became visibly nervous and gave me a thorough once-over from head to toe when he found out. Come on, let us go to the hospital for a checkup. I couldn't help but laugh at his exaggerated caution, though the thought warmed my heart. I spun around in front of him. I'm fine, see, I'm perfectly healthy and full of energy. You know me, I'd make a huge fuss over the tiniest scratch on my knee if I were feeling unwell. Do you really think I could keep it from you? That makes sense. Julian knew me well. Often with just one glance, he could tell what I was thinking. Like now when I tugged at his sleeve to keep him from leaving. Want a hug? Julian was always indulgent with me, wrapping me in his arms with one hand. The fear from the car crash came crashing down on me belatedly. It's okay, don't be afraid. I didn't speak, just breathed in the sandalwood scent of his clothes and held him tighter. As we left the parking lot, Julian glanced at his phone, looking like he wanted to say something, but hesitated. Earlier today, outside school, were you what? I looked up at him. He shook his head. Never mind, let us go home. Alright, having realized my true feelings and reconciled with Julian, I couldn't wait to spend every single day clinging to him. I entered the password and opened the door. You got into a car accident today, yet you're in such a good mood. I deliberately played coy, guess Julian tentatively ventured, because you met someone. You could say that, yeah, I smiled, brightly, not thinking much of it. I met. Before the word, you could leave my lips, Julian turned and pinned me against the door, kissing me abruptly. In the dim light, his hands wandered everywhere, igniting flames with each touch, his initiative overwhelming. Julian, what has gotten into you? It's the weekend tomorrow, no need to wake up early. His heavy, heated breath brushed against my ear, dampening my skin, as my body responded to him with natural, honest desire. From the sofa to the bathroom, then back to the bedroom, Julian seemed tireless. At some point, ID lost count. I thought of those adorable baby products in the maternity store since ID decided to settle down properly. A sudden impulse made me grab Julian's hand as he reached for a condom. In my dazed state, a warm drop of water fell onto my face. I couldn't tell if it was sweat or tears. October 10th was my in-laws' 30th wedding anniversary. Julian and I specially hosted several tables at the hotel to entertain close relatives and friends, making it a lively occasion. During the meal, I yawned over a dozen times. Though I hadn't done anything, I felt inexplicably exhausted. Seeing my pale complexion, my mother-in-law asked Julian to accompany me back to the room to rest. The hotel where we held the banquet featured a fusion of Chinese and Western design styles. We had originally booked a Chinese-style suite, but due to burst pipes in that area, we were temporarily moved to a Western-style suite. The distance between the two areas wasn't too far, just a 5-minute walk. The autumn maples lining the road were ablaze with red, creating the perfect scenery for appreciation. Have you had enough of this tantrum? No. As we passed through a circular corridor, we overheard a man and woman arguing. We stopped to listen for a moment, and the more we heard, the more familiar it sounded. Today is my grandmother's birthday, and as a junior, you made her wait an hour just to get your hair done. Is this how a granddaughter-in-law should behave? I got my hair done to look prettier and make you proud. Was it really just for myself? Chloe's voice cracked from shouting. In your eyes, everything I do is wrong, and I'll never measure up to Grace. Did you regret marrying me from the very beginning? Liam retorted, yes. Had I known you were such a brash, ignorant, shallow, and vain woman, I wouldn't have touched you. With a 10-foot pole, you're not even fit to hold a candle to Grace. Liam, I'll have you know I'm carrying your child now. Don't you dare think about abandoning us. We ran headlong into Liam as he stormed out in a rage. Grace, Chloe called out, holding her belly as she hurried to catch up. When she saw Julian and me, she couldn't hide the distress and tears on her face, forcing a strained smile. What a coincidence, running into you both here. If possible, I really wish it hadn't been such a coincidence. Julian took my hand. Grace, let me walk you back to your room to rest. Seeing the object of her unrequited affection being so attentive to me, Chloe shot me a venomous glare. The next second, she called out loudly to Julian, Julian, don't you know Grace married? You just use you. She never liked you. The one she loved all along is Liam. You're just a joke. Though Julian never said it aloud, I knew Liam was like a thorn in his side. When left untouched, it festered in the flesh. With the slightest movement, it throbbed with dull pain. Even if it's just being used, I'd gladly accept it. She doesn't love me, but I love her. That's enough. I froze, my eyes stung, misted over with unshed tears. Chloe, still basking in the triumph of her revenge, had her smile freeze on her face at these words. Why would us so great about Grace and the heroine everyone should revolve around me? How could Grace, a vicious supporting character, deserve true love that should all be mine? It suddenly dawned on me, Chloe had the same prophetic dream as I did. Julian, you're such a fool. And you, Liam, I'm your lawfully wedded wife. Why are all of you siding with Grace? What does that bitch have that I don't? Chloe snapped and lunged at me. Haven, you had enough of this madness. A slap landed, sending Chloe staggering, nearly collapsing to the ground. Tears streamed down her face as she stared at Liam in disbelief. You hit me. Liam was also dazed, staring blankly at his own palm. The farce ended there. 13. Chloe miscarried. While visiting my parents' home, I overheard my mother discussing this matter with a neighbor. Liam's family called an ambulance late at night, but the child still couldn't be saved. Chloe was devastated and developed mental health issues. As she watered the plants, my mother said, when I think about what she did to you, I can't help feeling she deserves it. But then again, as fellow women, perhaps it's better to let it go. Liam bears greater responsibility for what happened back then. I nodded, unconsciously touching my stomach. What are you doing here? My gentle mother suddenly roared like a lioness, startling me. I followed the sound. Liam's mother was lingering at the doorway, holding her bag hesitantly. I hadn't seen her since our families fell out. Now dark circles shadowed her eyes, her bloodshot gaze, making her look a decade older. Grace, could Annie ask you a favor? Could you visit Liam at the hospital? Mid-sentence, Liam's mother broke down in uncontrollable sobs. Her weeping softened my mother's heart. What's wrong? What happened? What a cruel fate. Liam's mother recounted the whole story from beginning to end. Chloe and Liam had another fierce argument. Liam demanded a divorce. Chloe refused, and they got into a physical fight. Chloe was hit in the abdomen and lost the baby. In a mental breakdown, Chloe stabbed Liam, sending him to the intensive care unit. Her own mental state had completely deteriorated after 3 days and nights of emergency treatment. Liam was out of critical condition. But he said he wanted to see me, otherwise he wouldn't accept treatment. He's the one ruining his own health. There's nothing I can do about it. Grace, I'm begging you for old time's sake, please go see him. Liam's mother was about to kneel before me. I clutched my stomach and took a fearful step back. In the end, I had no choice but to let my mother accompany me to the hospital. He lay weakly on the hospital bed. When he saw me, he struggled to sit up, his eyes lighting up with joy. Grace, did you come to see me? Your mother begged me to come, I replied, dousing his enthusiasm like a bucket of cold water. Liam's joy froze on his face. Grace, can we ever go back to how things were? No, I've said all there is to say. I turned to leave. Liam, unwilling to let go, chased after me. Why, Julian, is he really that much better? I've thought about that question too. The truth is he is perfect in every way. I met him when I was at my lowest, in my darkest state of mind. When people are trapped in darkness, they always yearn for that one ray of light. Julian was that light. 15. The collapse of Chloe and Liam's marriage taught me to cherish those right in front of me. Not everyone can be like Julian, steadfastly staying by my side through it all. Despite our less than perfect beginning, he still offered me his sincere heart, never abandoning me. Returning from the hospital, I had good news and couldn't wait to share it with Julian. Julian, why aren't you answering me? He abruptly handed me a document, delivering a shocking blow. Divorce papers, I've already signed them. Frowning, I took the agreement and flipped straight to the last page. He really had signed. My voice trembled with urgency. What do you mean by this? Julian lowered his eyes, avoiding my questioning gaze. Liam is officially single now. I know you've never let go of him. When we got married, I said I would respect your feelings and never make things difficult for you. He asked back, so I should leave. I finally saw the date on the divorce papers. It was 3 months ago, right after we returned from that wedding banquet. He had already prepared to leave at that time. My heart ached with a sour pain mixed with a tinge of anger. I gripped the edges of the agreement tightly. You've made up your mind. I stared at his slightly reddened eyes and the corners of his mouth that he was desperately trying to keep from trembling. He forced out a smile. It was hideous. When are you leaving? Tomorrow. Fine. Julian picked up his pillow and headed to the guest room. You're quite quick to act. Without someone by my side, I can't sleep at night. The more I thought about it, the worse I felt. I put on my shoes and left the room. I had to go and get some answers. A small nightlight was on in the guest room, its glow seeping through the crack under the door. I pushed the door open gently. No one was there. Julian had gone downstairs to the living room. He stayed awake alone, caressing every item we had bought together. The wedding photo hanging on the wall, he held it in his arms, wiping it over and over, then bowed his head to suppress silent sobs. His back slightly hunched, shoulders trembling in the hazy night. All those details I'd overlooked, his many unspoken words now threaded together like countless intertwining threads. Julian never intended to stay with me from the very beginning. He was prepared to walk away at any moment. He had no certainty about us. I treated him poorly before, bullying and humiliating him. Though I later restrained myself and opened up to him, I still held back. I lacked the courage to face my own heart, yet I reveled in his sincerity, endlessly taking without giving. Perhaps he saw me with Liam outside the school that day. Perhaps, like my past self, he believed a decade-long bond was unshakable, not something anyone could easily replace. Liam had divorced. He thought the time had come. Fearing I might bring it up first, he took the initiative to leave. I kept the last shred of dignity for myself. Only then did I finally understand Julian as heart. 14. The silence before parting. Julian opened the wardrobe and began packing his belongings. I watched from the side. He gathered his clothes one by one into the suitcase, folding them neatly, until he picked up 2 white pure cotton shirts, each bearing a red heart on the chest. We bought them from a street vendor on Valentine's Day. I took a liking to them, so I bought 2. They were neatly folded together. Julian hesitated for a moment before reaching out to take one. As the clothes shook, photo after photo tumbled out, scattering irregularly across the floor. Every single one was of him. Julian preparing lessons at his desk. Julian sleeping peacefully. Julian watering the flowers. Julian's face contorted from accidentally eating a sour orange. He crouched down, examining each one carefully. These. I took them, he said, so excited he was almost incoherent. Are these all of me? They're dogs. Julian laughed through his tears, picking up a few photos and pressing them to his heart. Why, I couldn't even count how many I'd taken anymore. At first it was just because they looked nice, but then it spiraled out of control. I approached and picked up a photo of Julian bending sideways to water the flowers. I don't know when it started, but my gaze always follows you, watching the way you walk, how you drink water, your writing habits. During idle moments, my mind fills with your every smile, frown, word, and phrase. When my eyes couldn't capture enough, I used my phone to record. I kept snapping until the memory was full, unable to delete a single one. Looking isn't enough, and even developing the photos 1T. Let me see everything. Do you have me in your heart? Julian came to this unbelievable conclusion. The next second, he denied it himself. How could this be possible? I could no longer maintain my composure. I rushed forward and shoved a test report into his hands. I pushed him away angrily while crying, Julian, just go. After you leave, I'll have the baby in my belly. Call someone else daddy. Baby, for the past week I'd not only been drowsy, but also constantly nauseous. While blow drying my hair, I noticed the empty hair oil had been replaced with a new bottle. I had a rough guess in my heart, so I went to the hospital to make an appointment. A checkup revealed I was already nearly 2 months pregnant. Was it that night? Yes, recalling the madness of that evening, Julian and I simultaneously lowered our heads. I hadn't expected the child to come so soon after confirming the pregnancy. I couldn't wait to share the good news with Julian, only to have him deal me a crushing blow. Fuming with anger, I deliberately accepted that agreement. In truth, that agreement had long been torn to shreds by me, tossed into the kitchen waste bin, mixed in with the leftover food scraps. If I hadn't let go of Liam, how could I have let you touch me again and again to become true husband and wife with you? Julian was such a blockhead, forcing me to spell it out so plainly. And when I actually said it out loud, his cheeks flushed crimson, shy as a maiden. At first I was using you, but later I truly fell in love with you. Liam did want to reconcile with me, but I refused. I cupped his face and kissed his tear-dampened eyelashes. Julian, I love you. I only want to be with you. The end.